where legends breathe again. Eldmyth. The dawn of history is not merely a timeline of kings and conquests, but a tapestry woven with threads of the divine and the inexplicable. Before the cold light of pure reason sought to explain every shadow, humanity lived in a world alive with wonder and terror, a world where the sun was not a ball of plasma, but a blazing chariot traversing the sky, driven by a being of immense power and profound mystery. We begin our journey in the hushed, hallowed spaces where his memory first took root. Imagine the cool, damp air of a Minoan Peak sanctuary, high on the slopes of Mount Juctas. The wind whispers through ancient, gnarled olive trees, carrying the scent of time and dry earth. A priest, his face lined with sun and ceremony, raises his hands to the eastern horizon. He does not pray to an abstract concept of light. He invokes a presence. He calls the name Helios. The first sliver of sun breaks over the Aegean Sea, and it is not just light that floods the world, but a palpable, golden energy. This is the world we have lost, the world where the myth of Helios was born. He was the all-seeing Titan, the Lord of the Sun, a deity whose daily journey was the very heartbeat of the cosmos. To understand him is to peer into the soul of the ancient world, to comprehend how our ancestors saw order in the chaos of the heavens, and divinity in the very air they breathed. Helios's origins are as primordial as light itself. In the Theogony of Hesiod, the great chart of divine genealogy, he is born of the Titans Hyperion and Theia. Hyperion, the he who goes above, and Theia, the divine or sight, were deities of the celestial radiance. From them, Helios inherited his domain, the sun. His sisters were Selene, the moon, a pale beauty who drove her own chariot across the night sky, and Eos, the dawn, the rosy-fingered herald who painted the sky each morning to announce his glorious arrival. This familial triad, sun, moon, dawn, represents the ancient Greeks' fundamental understanding of the celestial cycle, a divine family business that governed time itself. Helios was not the later, more philosophical Apollo, who would absorb some of his solar attributes. Helios was the sun, in its most literal physical form. His emergence from the chaotic pre-Olympian order of the Titans is significant. He represents an older, more elemental power, one that was foundational to the cosmos itself, a force that even the upstart Olympian gods like Zeus would have to acknowledge and respect. The earliest artifacts depicting him are not grand statues, but humble, powerful symbols on pottery and in shrine offerings. A simple, radiant disk, a spiral representing the uncoiling of light, or a powerful, bearded face surrounded by emanating rays. This divine duty was not a passive state of being. It was an active, daily labor. The most iconic image of Helios is that of the Charioteer of the sun. Each morning, at the far eastern edge of the world, near the land of the Ethiopians whom he favored, Helios would rise from the couch he shared with his consort. He would don his brilliant radiance and step into his magnificent chariot, a masterpiece forged by the divine smith Hephaestus. This was no ordinary vehicle. It was wrought of gleaming gold and electrum, so bright that to look upon it directly was to be blinded. The chariot was drawn by 4 fire-breathing immortal steeds whose names embodied their nature: Pyrrha the fiery one, Eos he of the dawn, Ethon the blazing, and Phlegon the burning. With a crack of his whip and a firm hand on the reins, Helios would begin his ascent. His path was a precise arc across the dome of the sky. He did not race erratically. His movement was stately, measured, and inevitable, a symbol of cosmic order, of dike or justice. From his lofty perch, nothing on the earth or sea could escape his all-seeing gaze. He was the great witness, the eye of the world. As he traveled, his light was not merely illumination. It was life-giving energy, causing crops to grow, warming the soil, and revealing the world in all its detail, for good and for ill. His journey was not without its appointed resting places. After his long day's traverse, Helios would arrive at the western edge of the world, where the great river Oceanus encircled the flat disk of the earth. Here, a magnificent golden boat, or sometimes a great cup, awaited him. This vessel, another creation of Hephaestus, was his nocturnal transport. He would carefully stable his fiery horses, and then, with his chariot stored securely aboard, he would sail the circumference of the world along the stream of Oceanus. This was a journey through the dark, subterranean, or more accurately, suboceanic, waters that led him back to his eastern palace. This night-sea journey is one of the most profound aspects of his myth. It symbolizes the sun's passage through the unseen world, the necessary period of darkness and rest that precedes rebirth. As he sailed beneath the earth, his light would occasionally leak through fissures, creating the faint glow of dawn or the fiery spectacle of volcanoes. He would finally arrive at his palace in the east, a structure of gleaming crystal and gold, where his divine family awaited, and where he would rest until Eos once again prepared the way for his next triumphant emergence. This eternal, unbreakable cycle was the guarantee of the world's stability. The most famous sanctuary dedicated to Helios was the Colossus of Rhodes, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. This was not merely a statue. It was a statement of gratitude, identity, and sheer audacity. The story begins with a siege. In 305 BC, the Antigonid dynasty laid siege to the prosperous island of Rhodes. After a year of relentless conflict, the Rhodians, against all odds, emerged victorious. In their triumph, they sold the abandoned siege equipment of their enemies and used the vast fortune to commission a statue to their patron god, Helios, whom they believed had secured their deliverance. The sculptor Charles of Lindos spent 12 years on the project, and the result was a bronze titan over 100 feet tall. Imagine standing in the harbor of ancient Rhodes, your ship sailing between the legs of this gleaming god, his head crowned with radiating spikes, one hand shielding his eyes as he gazed eternally out to sea. The Colossus was a physical manifestation of the Rhodians' piety and their naval power. It was Helios as protector, as the unwavering guardian of the city. For decades, it stood as a beacon of divine favor until an earthquake snapped it at the knees, toppling it into the harbor. Yet, even in its fallen state, it became a legend, a testament to the scale of human devotion to the all-seeing sun god. The all-seeing nature of Helios made him a pivotal, if often silent, witness in the dramas of gods and mortals. His role as the great eye in the sky meant that secrets were difficult to keep from him. This is powerfully illustrated in the most famous myth of illicit love, the affair between Aphrodite, the goddess of love, and Ares, the god of war. The two believed their trysts, hidden in the palace of Aphrodite's husband, Hephaestus, were conducted in perfect secrecy, but they failed to account for the sun. Helios, on his daily journey, saw everything. He witnessed the clandestine meetings, the stolen embraces, and he, in an act of divine civic duty or perhaps simple gossip, reported what he had seen to the cuckolded husband. The enraged Hephaestus, the master craftsman, then wove a net of threads as fine as spider silk but unbreakable as adamant. He arranged it over the bed and pretended to leave for his forge. When the lovers next met, the net fell, trapping them naked and helpless in the very act. Hephaestus then called all the other Olympian gods to witness the humiliation. This story underscores a fundamental truth of the Greek worldview. No action, no matter how hidden, escapes the light of the sun. Helios was the ultimate guarantor of truth and the unmasker of deception. Perhaps the most poignant and tragic tale associated with Helios is not his own, but that of his son, Phaethon. The boy grew up in the mortal world, raised by his mother, the Oceanid Clymene. He was proud of his divine parentage, but his friends mocked him, doubting his claim. To prove his lineage, Phaethon journeyed to the dazzling eastern palace of Helios. The sun god, overjoyed to see his son, welcomed him warmly and in a moment of paternal pride, swore by the dreaded river Styx to grant him any wish he desired. The wish, however, was catastrophic. The impulsive boy asked to drive his father's sun chariot for a single day. Horror-struck, Helios tried to dissuade him, describing the terrifying steepness of the path, the ferocity of the celestial beasts, the dizzying height. But an oath on the Styx was unbreakable. With a heavy heart, Helios anointed his son with protective balm, placed the radiant sun crown on his head, and gave him the reins with frantic last-minute instructions. The moment Phaethon took control, the horses, sensing an inexperienced and weak hand, bolted. They veered wildly off their sacred path, soaring too high, freezing the stars, then plunging too low, scorching the earth, creating the deserts of Libya and darkening the skin of the Ethiopians. The chaos in the heavens was absolute. The earth cried out in agony as forests became infernos and rivers boiled away. To prevent the total annihilation of creation, Zeus, the king of the gods, was forced to act. With a heavy heart and a mighty thunderbolt, he struck the chariot, shattering it and sending the screaming Phaethon plummeting like a falling star into the river Eridanus. Heliades, the daughters of Helios, mourned his death so profoundly that the gods transformed them into poplar trees, and their tears, which fell ceaselessly, hardened into amber. Helios, in his grief, refused to shine for a full day, shrouding the world in darkness as he mourned the son he had lost through his own incautious oath. The myth of Phaethon serves as a powerful cautionary tale about hubris, the danger of overreaching one's limits, and the profound, often unintended, consequences of a parent's love. It also highlights the immense, terrifying power that Helios wielded daily, a power so great that its mismanagement could unmake the world. Another story that showcases the territorial and protective nature of Helios involves his sacred cattle. On the island of Thrinacia, which many identify with Sicily, Helios kept 7 herds of magnificent cattle and 7 flocks of flawless sheep, each numbering 50. These animals were not mere livestock. They were immortal and represented the 7 days of the lunar month and the 50 weeks of the year, a living, breathing calendar of divine origin. They were guarded by his 2 daughters, Phaethusa and Lampetia. When Odysseus and his weary crew landed on Thrinacia in Homer's epic, the seer Tiresias and the enchantress Circe had explicitly warned them, harm the cattle and face destruction. For a month, adverse winds trapped them on the island. Their supplies ran out, and hunger gnawed at their resolve. While Odysseus was away praying, his men, led by the desperate Eurylochus, succumbed to temptation. They reasoned that the loss of a few cattle was preferable to starvation, and they slaughtered the finest of the herd, impiously roasting the meat. The hides of the slaughtered animals began to crawl, and the meat lowed on the spits, a horrific, unnatural sound. Lampetia immediately reported the sacrilege to her father. Helios's reaction was one of righteous fury, but it was a cold, determined anger. He did not rage blindly. Instead, he went directly to the court of the Olympian gods and stood before Zeus. His argument was simple, powerful, and unassailable. Zeus, Father Zeus, and you other blessed gods who are forever, punish the companions of Odysseus. They have killed my cattle, the great joy of my heart. He then issued a chilling ultimatum. If the offenders were not punished, he would descend to the underworld and shine his light for the dead, leaving the world of the living in perpetual darkness. This was no empty threat. The balance of the entire cosmos was at stake. Zeus, acknowledging the justice of his claim, gave his word. When Odysseus and his men finally set sail from the accursed island, Zeus unleashed a tempest of unparalleled fury. A thunderbolt struck their ship, splintering it to pieces. Every single man who had partaken of the sacred meat was killed, their bodies battered by the waves. Only Odysseus, who had remained innocent of the sacrilege, survived, clinging to the wreckage. This myth reinforces Helios's role as a deity whose domains were inviolable. To transgress against him was to transgress against the natural order itself, an act that demanded and received the most severe cosmic retribution. As the classical age gave way to the Hellenistic period and later the Roman Empire, the worship of Helios underwent a fascinating evolution. He was increasingly syncretized, or merged, with other solar deities. The most significant of these was his association with, and eventual absorption by, Apollo. Originally a god of prophecy, music, and plague, Apollo gradually took on more and more solar characteristics, until poets and philosophers often used the names Helios and Apollo interchangeably for the sun. In Rome, he was worshipped as Sol, and his importance saw a dramatic resurgence under the Emperor Elagabalus, and later Aurelian, who established the cult of Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun, as a premier state religion. This was not the pastoral, witnessing Helios of the Greeks, but a powerful, abstract, and almost monotheistic force of cosmic order and imperial power. The festival of Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, celebrated on December 25th, marked the sun's rebirth after the winter solstice and would later influence the dating of Christmas. This transition from a specific mythological charioteer to a universal imperial symbol shows the enduring human need to personify and worship the source of all light and life. The legacy of Helios did not end with the fall of Rome. His image, his stories, and his symbolic power have been continuously rediscovered and reinterpreted through the centuries. During the Renaissance, artists, re-engaging with classical texts, depicted him in magnificent frescoes and sculptures, often as the embodiment of celestial light and cosmic harmony. In the Baroque period, the tragic fall of Phaethon became a popular subject, allowing artists to explore dynamic movement, dramatic emotion, and chaotic landscapes. In the modern era, Helios appears in the most unexpected places. He is the namesake for the element helium, first discovered in the sun's spectrum. He is a figure in fantasy literature and role-playing games, often as a powerful sun deity. He appears in comics and films, his chariot reimagined as a starship, his all-seeing eye as a satellite surveillance system. The core archetype he represents, the life-giving, all-witnessing, untamable force of the sun, remains as potent as ever. He is a bridge between our scientific understanding of a G-type main-sequence star and our ancestral, visceral experience of the sun as a personal, powerful, and divine presence. So, what remains of Helios? He is more than a forgotten name in a dusty tome of mythology. He is the echo in our language every time we use a word like heliocentric. He is the inspiration in an artist's rendering of a distant sun. He is the enduring symbol of truth that will always come to light. His myth speaks to fundamental human experiences, the awe we feel at a perfect sunrise, the comfort we take in the reliable cycles of nature, the fear we harbor of cosmic forces beyond our control, and the understanding that our actions, however hidden we believe them to be, exist under a universal gaze. The story of Helios is the story of our attempt to find meaning, order, and divinity in the heavens. As long as the sun continues to rise, tracing its path from east to west, the essence of Helios endures. He is not just a god of the past, but a perpetual reminder of the light that reveals, sustains, and judges our world. Look to the sunrise not just as an astronomical event, but as the eternal journey of a titan, a reminder that every new day is a gift of fire from the gods. Another legend fades, but the next awaits. Like this video, subscribe and continue the journey through myths.